Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Good for Bitcoin. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines, and we are very happy and excited to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary of the show today. Also very happy and excited that I have my two regular co-hosts to introduce today after a couple week hiatus. Sean, Kate, welcome to Good for Bitcoin. It's been a few weeks, so glad to have you on.
Yeah, good to be here. Happy 1-year anniversary. This is an exciting show. I can't wait to see what news you've got lined up and who's going to join us as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. It was a good little break, but it's funny. I was seeing this meme go around and it's like, just buy Bitcoin and focus on honing your craft. And I was like, well, it's tough when like talking about Bitcoin and, you know, working on products and doing marketing is your craft. So it's definitely good to like kind of separate and just be able to spend time with loved ones away from the computer and away from this crazy internet money.
Yeah, always nice to get out, touch some grass, and just get away from it for a little bit. Not be so glued to social Twitter all the time. We're gonna have a good cast of characters coming in. I see some people requesting. We're gonna just go through some intros and then we'll bring some people up. So thank you for requesting. And go ahead, Sean.
I was only going to say that that's one thing that I do like about kind of crypto Twitter culture is this emphasis of touching grass, checking out on the weekends. I try not to engage too much on the weekends because I kind of feel like for a lot of people in the feed, maybe it's time to, like you said, Kate, be with the family. Get that nature time, that outside time, get the balance. So important because we're kind of big. If you're into Bitcoin, it can be like all in, right?
Before we begin, I have two requests from the audience for those that are listening. First up, please go, if you're listening live, please go to the Trust Machines account, scroll down a little bit, find our show where we are watching ourselves speak right now. Please retweet the space. And once you've done that, we'd actually like for you to join us directly in Riverside. I'm going to pull up the link here. And if you would like to come up and speak and be a guest on the show today, this is the link, riverside.fm/studio/good-for-Bitcoin. Please join us. And yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to be giving away some stuff throughout the whole show. We have some prize packs to give away that are Trust Machines product themed. And it's going to be fun. So thank you guys for joining. Mr. Wagme has joined. So I'm letting him up right now. Mr. Wagme, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going,
Hopefully
Brandon?
we can hear you okay.
Good on my end. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
GM.
A little echo actually on our end, but we can hear you.
I'm sure it's one of these toggles here.
How did you get that amazing sticker on your microphone?
You know, I got this care pack in the mail and got the hat too. I had to represent that today. So
Nice.
But yeah, from my good friends over there at Leather.
Love it. Well, that's maybe a preview of some of the things that we'll be giving out later. We have, I think, some more of those. So, let's get right into it. Normally we kind of start the show off talking about different product news, different things. It's been a little bit of a slower week, I feel like, in terms of announcements on our end, but did want to mention this really big initiative with Stacks Ascent that just got announced sort of post Buidl Battle. And Sean, I definitely want to throw it over to you because I know that you've been looking into Buidl Battle and have some stuff to talk about there. But Stacks Ascent, Trust Machines is partnering with Stacks Ascent, which is a new program that's designed to take builders from code to company. So it's really, designed to help builders in this ecosystem actually launch their products and form, potential businesses and companies around them with mentorship, up to $25,000 in funding. Really huge, awesome initiative there. So make sure that you check out the Stacks account to find out more about that. But Sean, I'm going to put you on the spot and have you talk a little bit about Buidl Battle, because that was also the winners were announced this week, and I know you're preparing some stuff around that. And yeah, I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. It was just to echo the sentiment in the ecosystem right now. I think Adam was saying he was expecting like that if they reached 70 participants in the Buidl Battle, he would have been pretty blown away. And they had over 100 applicants. So to get down to this final list of winners really shows what it takes to come up with original ideas and execution, because also there was an amazing like panel of judges, right? So it was very rigorous. So next week on Tuesday for the next Leather Lounge, we're going to be talking with a lot of the winners. And so I'll just name them off here. I mean, huge congratulations to Rosar for winning first place. And it's pretty cool that we talked to him 6 or 7 weeks ago on the Leather Lounge. And Blaze, it was pretty fresh for him at that point. And like some things were even theoretical. And to see him, like, as always, just building great things for the community, to see him win first place was I feel like that was a moment of vindication for him and fun for the community as well. But we're also going to be talking to some familiar names and faces. So Nestor Campos from POX Agents, Apollo from Culture, Snazzy from BNS1, Ronol from Bolt Protocol, a protocol called Culture.fun, a couple people from Truth Chain, and BigMarket.ai. So yeah, we're going to have, and then Adam's joining us as well. So it'll be a great opportunity just for everyone to learn a little bit more about who the winners are, what the winning protocols are. We're going to give them a little bit of time to either show us some product demos on the website or, go through a quick like slide deck just so we can really wrap our heads around the innovation that's happening in the Stacks ecosystem right now.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool to hear from all these builders, and hopefully, they'll be able to like share their screen or do something, to show their products or whatever they're launching off, live. That's going to be really fun. And yeah, I mean, I want to echo, like, there's so many great projects that applied to this. And it's really difficult, right? To, not just build something in kind of the shorter time frame for these hackathon style competitions, but, you're not just being a coder in this case, you're also having to do all the marketing and, just there's so much preparation that's involved other than just like writing code. So you really have to just have like a very wide skill set to do everything, right? That's involved with these types of hackathons. So yeah, I think there was over or nearly 100 applicants, right? Or nearly 100 projects. So it's just incredible stuff. So yeah, really looking forward to hearing more from some of those builders next week. That's going to be a really fun show. I'm going to keep throwing it to you so you can recap also your conversation with Violetta on the lounge this week. Really nice to have her return and talk a lot more about the stuff that she's been working on lately, which is really, really cool.
For sure. Yeah, the episode with Violetta is live like on all the podcast platforms. So if you missed it, definitely catch it. She even performed live at the end of the show on a new song that she's writing. So I'll just try to keep it real quick. But Violetta is just a super talented singer-songwriter, originally from Italy. Now she lives in Nashville. And a lot of us heard her popping up in a lot of these like kind of NFT spaces. And then when Ordinals came about, so she was like doing a lot of stuff on ETH first. And then when Ordinals came about, she pivoted as quickly as she could. So we got to hear like the backstory on, in those early days, it was basically like impossible, right, to inscribe a song on Bitcoin because the fees are so high and it was such limited block space. So she talked about some of the challenges there. We got backstory on, how she became the musician that she is and what her approach is to marketing, which I think a lot of people will find valuable because everyone in this space has to find their own like voice as a marketer, their own approach. So I really found what she had to say very valuable. So it was a great conversation. She's one of the most dedicated artists, performers in the space, super talented. So that's all the time I'll take about that. But yeah, we'll be releasing some little clips over the next week as well.
Yeah, always great to hear from her. Definitely echo that. Very talented. We have a few more folks that have joined. We got Rena, Jack Benswitch, welcome guys to the show.
Oh, this is awesome. Congratulations on the year, by the way. And Buidl Battle was great, but dude, Stacks Ascent, come on. Like, you guys are just like killing it right now. This is insane. How do you even like explain the dynamics succinctly what's going on right now in this ecosystem, in terms of being able to take people who are in the ecosystem or draw people into the ecosystem and help them to create the next wave of innovation. And you're kind of like decentralizing opportunity. So what's the word for that? Has anyone invented one yet? Like that's awesome, guys.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a word for it, but I do really love how much like resources and time and energy is put into growing this ecosystem of builders. Like, you really don't see this, I feel like, on any other chain that I know of, like quite as much as the emphasis that Stacks puts on empowering builders and doing all these fun little competitions like this. So not little by any means, but
really jealous. I have a leather hat and I can't wear it because my head's too big. So y'all now know for sure that I have a larger head than Mr. Wagme does.
You know what?
It is a big head.
Yeah.
It just is what
I
it
actually
is.
have a similar problem, Jack. I some of the swag that we have, I like can't, it like looks weird on my head. So I have like, I don't know, a bigger head.
Yeah, I mean,
Hopefully
you
we
have
can-
hair. You have more of an excuse. You can be like, my hair is just too,
Yeah, have, more
too
padding,
voluptuous and too much volume. But yeah, I have no such excuse.
Yeah. Well, we want to give some stuff away. I think the first giveaway that we want to do is to anybody that retweets the space on X or on Twitter. So if anybody wants to win some things, I think the only thing that we ask is that you ideally live in the US. So shipping costs are not too much for us, but we're going to give away a swag pack. I realized that I forgot to queue up the images for this. Kate, I don't know if maybe you can queue it up and share your screen somehow and show the swag that we're giving away. But again, just go to the Trust Machines Co. Twitter handle, retweet the live stream, and we will pick from the retweets pretty soon. And Rena, let me throw it over to you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. How was your week?
Been a good week for Bitcoin. We're recovering, so like that makes me happy. It's also been a weird week watching like other chains come back into Bitcoin for the first time. The Zeus Solana BTC thing went live yesterday. I'm like, I guess if you really want to do something on Solana and not do it on a Bitcoin L2, like I have some hate going.
Yeah, well, maybe we could talk about that a little bit more. I haven't actually been following that launch. So anything more that you can share about that?
They basically, like Zeus and like through Apollo, basically created this trustless Bitcoin swap on Solana. So you can go from BTC to a Bitcoin derived asset issued on Solana. Generally like cross chain, meeting people where you are. That's pretty cool to see it happen. But I think when you're expecting something to be the speed like Solana, and then it took like 4 hours to go from BTC to the new asset, probably not okay, like just whatsoever. It's like, but I love the idea of everybody wants to use a Bitcoin derived asset in DeFi. And so Solana is killing it on the DeFi game. So to bring that to a new audience, because at the end of the day, everybody is a Bitcoiner.
Absolutely. Wanted to pull up our good friend, the Crypto Fear and Greed Index, just to show that it actually has been maybe a slightly better week this week compared to what we saw previous weeks or even like the previous month. I think we're still low. We're still in what they categorize as fear category, but that is certainly much better than extreme fear, which we were seeing last month on this index. But how, for the group here, I guess, how are the vibes on your guys' end?
Well,
Go ahead, Wagme.
I'll make it quick. Being through a couple cycles, I've earned my stripes, and the Wagme index is always in the green. So it's just these cycles and revolutions. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. You have a lot of people who jumped into Bitcoin, at the top, and that was their first time experiencing Bitcoin, and you get this drawdown, and most people aren't used to that, and You find within the space, a lot of people aren't paying attention. You can see it at the community level. You know, there comes a point where people are like, well, my portfolio looks awful, so I'm going to log off for a while and touch grass for an extended period of time, right? And so you have that at play. And so right now you have what would consist of your core community showing up every day, still doing stuff, still excited, and this is the time where they really get the alpha, right? This is the time where they really see what's going on, what's being built, what to look out for next. And these are the people who tend to do better over a long period of time. The reality is, everyone's talking stablecoins this week. Stablecoins, right? Why? Why are they doing that? Well, there's a litany of reasons. But the real signal there is that we are now just kind of looking at a future of mass adoption right now, because stablecoins have to play a big part in that. They're essential. So smart money and people who want to help build out this industry further, they're all ready positioned and taking more positions and pushing out what's going to be the next iteration of mass adoption. And so that tells you that at 87K, 84K, whatever, Bitcoin is mispriced, but it's mispriced on a side favorable to the people who are here now, right? So that's great. Let's just go ahead and you just keep doing what you're doing, and the longer people get in here, they become more like WAGMI, who are just like, I'm cool. Like, I know what's happening. So that's basically the way I see it.
Jack, if I may add to that, one of the things that I find interesting, like these indexes, a lot of them are always based off price action, right? But I can take a gauge from where we were technology-wise 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and there is way more stuff today. So that's one of the things, like whenever I see that, I'm like looking at the ecosystem and all the different applications that are coming, all the new innovations, whether it's AI DAOs or stables, now having Bitcoin backed stable coins and stuff. It's a world's difference today.
Like STX, when I started buying STX, I made my first buy around $1.60. And then I bought it all the way down to 19 cents on that, bear market drawdown. So my average entry price, after that was somewhere around 54 cents or so, right? And I look, and back then that average entry was based on, I know Nakamoto's coming one day. I know SBTC's coming one day. And you just saw the potential. And what did we have in the ecosystem back then? Really, we had NFTs, you had Alex, you had, Deco, and that was pretty much about it. I'm not trying to intentionally leave anyone out, but that's really about where we were. And you look today and you have Nakamoto Speeds, you have SBTC just absolutely killing it. And look, we just had this Buidl Battle. We have all of these new people being drawn to the ecosystem because they recognize the opportunity. We have no one back then was really talking about building on Bitcoin aside from Stacks and, Rootstock and maybe like Liquid or what have you. And today, it's the meta, right? So when you're like buying Stacks today at these prices, you're like, oh yeah, like this is what traders and this is what experienced crypto participants are going to notice, by the way. You'd be like, oh, I can get into this ecosystem. Look, here's a perp dex. Look, I can actually lend Bitcoin safely through Granite. All of these things are here. All of these things are coming, right? So yeah, super bullish. It's insane. You're absolutely right, dude.
Yeah, the network is really primed for success at this point. You're seeing, Blaze, who's the founding contributor of Granite, was on Bitflow's show the other day, and he was talking about, post pre-Nakamoto, you had blocks that were, 10 minutes. We saw, just this week, we've seen several times on the Bitcoin L1, 50-minute block times, right? And that was what you saw on Stacks as well, right? Because Stacks was linked up with Bitcoin block times. So if you're trying to do any sort of DeFi action and it's going to take 50 minutes for that DeFi action to happen, that's like a non-starter almost, right? Why would you subject yourself to that? Just go use Ethereum or Solana or something else, right? So now the fact that we have Nakamoto's here, fast blocks are here, I can have trades settle in seconds, that that's just a much better experience
For a
than
penny.
what we had before. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for basically nothing, practically free transactions, fractions of a penny. It's massive. So yeah, I mean, and we're only a couple months into that, right? Nakamoto just launched just a few months ago at this point.
And
so
and we're
yeah,
doing
it's
all
huge.
this while being like super capped on SBTC too. We've only purposely allowed 3,000 BTC into the system, so 200, 300 mil kind of on a given basis. And as we go through the next hard cap, we're only going to allow the same, like a finite amount in. And what feedback that I'm getting since I'm doing a ton of institutional sales is that institutions like the Galaxies of the world or something of that caliber have been waiting to do this on a Bitcoin L2. They already have like the centralized rails in place where they have their own lending desks and things like that. But to do it on chain in a way that's decentralized, this is the first time that people are really thinking about it. Whereas you could have had the mullet option via Morpho and CB Bitcoin, but now people have rethought about what would be net better for consumers and what would be net better for institutions to maintain transparency. Because Brandon, you would know a lot of this was a black box from when you had like decentralized lending facilities and such. And so I'm particularly bullish because we've only allowed so much Bitcoin in, and we're going to continue to raise the bar so more and more can come in. But like the feedback that I'm getting from trading desks and LPs and everything kind of from miners and such, and even some certain like mining DAOs, it has only been a matter of time before they've been waiting for a solution that came from like SBDC and the Nakamoto perspective. Because you don't, if you're an institution, you're not going to take that much risk with how you're going to bridge your Bitcoin in. You're going to want something that ultimately is still secured through a recycling version of proof of work, and they're not going to go to a proof of stake chain whatsoever.
Yeah, it's very interesting too on like the topic of Bitcoin lending. We're seeing a few companies sort of announcing or teasing announcements of doing Bitcoin lending. We saw Zappo Bank, I think within the past week or two, announce Bitcoin lending, but that's a centralized offering. Today, I saw a tweet from Strike. They like retweeted something talking about Bitcoin lending, so they might be getting into the mix soon. But they're also like a little bit more centralized. You mentioned the black box thing, Rena, right? Like if it's centralized, it is in a black box, essentially. That is really, the promise of DeFi, right? Is that transparency. And yeah, it doesn't make sense anymore to like even use those types of services because you have these great experiences on, stacks on Bitcoin that is using, proof of work, that is settling back to Bitcoin for that finality. And yeah, there's not a lot of reason to go back to those types of services anymore because we've seen what can happen. We felt the fallout of that a few years ago with the FTXs and the Celsiuses of the world. So, why go back?
One of the things to add to that, Brandon, I posted this a couple times in the past week, and I was looking at Satoshi's old post, and I think it's like the first paragraph that he wrote, and there's a key part in there, and it says based on crypto proof or crypto trust or crypto proof. And, the system is designed without the need for a third party system or entity, I think is how you put it. You have to go back and look at it. But I remember explicitly that part that says based on crypto proof. And that kind of brings me back always to, what we're discussing today.
And Brandon, you brought up the key point. You said the key word, decentralization. We live in a world where not everyone has access to financial services. And if you're just looking to TradFi to be the medium that, Bitcoin becomes, a bigger part of the economy, that's great in some cases, I guess, but it doesn't solve the problem of reaching people who don't have access to financial services. That's the beauty of DeFi. And that's the beauty of Stacks, because again, like even with Stacks Ascent, even things prior to Stacks Ascent from way back, I remember in the early days, this way of like bringing opportunity to people to help change their families, their communities, eventually their nations. That's not possible unless it's decentralized. That's not possible unless it's available to everyone. If you've got a smartphone, if you've got an internet connection, you can do the same thing that I can do in a first world country. Like that's what's at stake here. And this is the big game changing part. And Bitcoin, Bitcoin is made with decentralization in mind, and you can't fail by sticking to that principle, and that's the why for Stacks.
Yeah, that points to the decentralization and the distribution and the democratization of finding a store of value, and also the freedom to transact. Right, Jack?
100%, man. Yeah. No, you said it. That's it. Like, I like Bitcoin for a lot of different reasons, but that's chief among them. This, we don't have to live the way that we think we have to live. There's a better way, and Bitcoin is going to helps enable that better way. It's literally revolutionary. It's like the Gutenberg printing press. It's like maybe the invention of writing in terms of its scale of impact that it's going to have on the human race. So anyone who wants to build on Bitcoin should stick to decentralization, period. A lot of people are worried about number go up. Well, Bitcoin's more than just a coin. It's more than just number go up. It's this powerful decentralized network that opens up a whole new realm of opportunity and access.
If I can put a pin on the word distribution there for a minute, Brandon, maybe that's a good transition to get to the rest of your schedule here, because I know it's not a good for Bitcoin show unless we talk about strategy.
We certainly can. I wanted to give one more plug to asking people to retweet the space on X. I see 6 retweets here, and all of them are from us that are speaking on the show. So for anybody that wants to win some swag, I posted the link here. We're giving out a couple of these swag packs. We got some stickers. We got a granite hoodie. We got a leather long sleeve. I'm actually wearing it right now. It's very comfortable. And some nice granite socks. So if you want to win some of these things, go here, retweet. I see we got another person retweeted. And also, if you're listening and you want to come up and join us and speak, I dropped the link there as well to join us live. So yeah, please do that. We'll pick some winners, I think, in a little bit when we get towards the end of the show. But go retweet the space, and that's how you'll win. And maybe everybody that retweets the space will just get one, because we have not a lot of people that have done it yet. You're leaving money on the table. These are nice quality items here. But yeah, thanks, Sean. Let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about strategy. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm bouncing around different tabs here. So we talked about it. Well, I guess we didn't talk about it because you guys weren't on the show the past couple of weeks, but Jason and I and Shay Lee talked about waiting for strategy to acquire more Bitcoin. There was a little bit of a delay in they hadn't acquired Bitcoin for most of February. And we were wondering what's the holdup? Why aren't they acquiring more? And they did this week. They acquired a lot more. They acquired $584 million worth more Bitcoin, 11 additional Bitcoin. They now surpassed their 500,000 BTC holdings at 506,037 BTC. So that's a lot of Bitcoin. Curious what you guys think about this. I think there's still a lot of FUD in terms of MicroStrategy could potentially tank the price of Bitcoin if they were to, decide to sell. How do you guys feel about strategy, having so much Bitcoin on their balance sheet?
You want to go first, Wagner?
I don't have, no top of mind thoughts. I remember looking at some of the stuff. I guess Michael Saylor was talking about his own personal possession. He said, whenever I go, I'm giving it back to the Bitcoin community. But, I definitely think the more that things are decentralized, the better. But, there's always there's people that are trailblazing and starting the path and providing the roadmap to the other businesses to figure out what is that strategy, no pun intended, but to get Bitcoin on the balance sheet for their business and, reap the benefits that come with that. Something that, provides a whole new, I guess, asset class that they've never had exposure to. So a lot of people are wondering how to do it. I'm reminded of one of the speeches that Saylor did. I think it was at something gala. And he said, he was quoting someone and said, there's no better example than, going out there and standing on the bridge and showing everybody, hey, it's sturdy. So, he does that by, making these purchases and showing people that, hey, this is a strategy that works. We're standing here. It's safe. Come on over. So no top of mind things, but, I think his heart is in the right place.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Bitcoin's going to do what Bitcoin's going to do, regardless of MicroStrategy. Ultimately, that's neither here nor there. It just doesn't matter. But what you can say is definitely a net positive, I believe, is exactly what Wagme just pointed out, in that, now you have like GameStop talking about, hey, we're buying Bitcoin, and we're going to see other, and it's kind of like what El Salvador did by adopting Bitcoin as currency. Some people need permission, and you see that in your own lives. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I have boomers in my family, and I've been talking to my boomers about Bitcoin for years now, and it just doesn't seem to connect. I can get it to connect with my kids. I can get it to connect with, people around my age. But for boomers, no. Like, I need to feel my money. Like, I need to know, what's with this up and down and this. But when it was after the conference, it was around the election time, something about Bitcoin was on Fox News in the morning. And, like, my mother-in-law called me. She's like, hey, they're talking about Bitcoin on the news. And so, like, that dynamic, right? Whether it's a nation state, whether it's a business of any size, and whether it's just an individual, some people just need permission. As crazy as that sounds, because we live in a permissionless environment. But some people need that permission, and this gives them that permission. And the business opportunities for Bitcoin go so far beyond large corporations. I mean, we're going to see, regional and local and mom and pops adopting this technology in ways that we can't totally foresee yet. Even stablecoins in and of themselves. Can you imagine getting able to go into your local gas station and going to get your coffee and your gas and paying with a stable? Well, when you do that, you're going to be saving 2 or 3% because you're not going to be paying, that debit card or credit card service fee, right? So this is all just mind blowing. And every time someone like Saylor makes a name for themselves by giving people permission, that's ultimately a positive thing. I believe that.
Can I take the other side of, I think like strategy should not be allowed to buy any more Bitcoin, or like it should be capped? Like, they own a little over 500,000 Bitcoin. I think Brandon, you said it was like 506,000 Bitcoin. That's about 2.5% of the supply of Bitcoin. So think about like basic token economics for anyone who might be launching a token or protocols. You're trying to go for decentralization, and now you're literally letting one singular party own 2.5%. I think it's actually insane that people are applauding Saylor to continue to buy more. Like, if I was a MicroStrategy or a strategy shareholder, honestly, in some areas, I would be pissed. Like, my stock price might have gone up, but that's only going to ride for so long. But I'm not getting paid any dividends. I'm not earning anything from that Bitcoin. It is not reflecting the people who bought the stock. And like, I think that's a failure case. And like, if you were to even go like one step further and look at the strategy shareholders value table, 1,200 shareholders are institutions. BlackRock owns 5% of strategy. So it is just the circular reaction of the same parties owning more Bitcoin, making it more challenging for everyday retail like us to actually get more Bitcoin.
Yep. I'm glad you made that point, Rena. I'm feeling the same way. And part of it is because that threshold is 2.5% of the supply and crossing that 500,000 Bitcoin number.
And they can continue to raise debt equity and buy more Bitcoin, where a normal person like us, maybe if you're lucky, you can try to do a equity raise via your home mortgage or something to buy more Bitcoin. But let's just say banks are not going to fund us to do that. Like, us, the everyday retailer, are going to get screwed. So I do think like you can be really happy about like the price appreciation of Bitcoin or anything like that. But you kind of have to think about like why you came into the industry and like what made you love Bitcoin. And it was to have a permissionless network that continues to run and will be your fail safe if every area of like global monetary policy fails. But the more and more we're allowing institutions to continue to buy this much Bitcoin because they can buy it in block size, whereas we cannot, we're kind of just like recreating like a financial system that doesn't quite work for us.
And, I honestly don't think, I don't know what they discuss in their halls, but, we know where kind of this BTC-fi or DeFi space is going as well. the hypothetical that you mentioned, Brandon, at the beginning, what if they were to sell or something like that? I don't think they're ever going to do that stuff. They're just going to hold the Bitcoin. They're going to make yield. They'll maybe look at environments that are, getting a lot of attention today. And, they get to pin that to their name. And, the ones that are early, it's interesting. So,
yeah, I think at the end of the day, MicroStrategy or not, the amount of Bitcoin that your average person will ever be able to own is literally shrinking by the day. I mean, not to the extent of just price action in general right now, but it is just everybody's coming online. Watch when the nation states are like overtly buying Bitcoin, right? Like this is, if you own a tenth of a Bitcoin today, how many people, like our grandchildren, how many of our grandchildren would be able to just buy a tenth of a Bitcoin by the time they exist, right? I don't know. But it's a good point. You brought up a very good point, Rena.
Kate, I wanted to ask you about the conversation that we had with Jason Meyer, because he had some really good points about the importance of adoption, that it needs to be distributed. And right now, I think Bitcoin is a really politicized word because President Trump is associated with it. So a lot of people are just like shut off, not having a conversation about it. Is there anything coming to your mind from the conversation with Jason that's, on this topic of distribution and, retail, being able to buy in?
Yeah, I remember he was talking about like executive orders, and they only last as long as the person in the office. And a lot of things that are happening right now seem to be because of like top-down authority. It's sort of like, we're going to do this because this administration wants to do it, instead of like coming bottom up from, this is how the people want it done. This is how, people that participate in the network and actually use Bitcoin on a daily basis want it to happen. So like my fear is that in 4 years' time, if, the political sphere changes again, a lot of the progress that we feel we're making might revert. So that's sort of when I think of like these not that strategy is an authoritative entity, but it's just so large and powerful that like by default, if you accumulate that much, you just have so much power over it. And it might not always be what the people of the network want to happen. So that's kind of what comes to mind.
You also hear Trump saying, I want all Bitcoin mining to happen in America. And he just doesn't understand the ethos. We don't want any country to have all the mining power.
Right.
Yeah, that's very true.
And
I think it's just more of like a long-term fear, like 100 years from now, Sailor's not going to be around anymore, right? And then what happens to MicroStrategy, and what happens to their plans of, what do they do with their Bitcoin then, right? It's just going to be a completely different ball game at that point. So it's hard,
and
it's an unknown, right? Who knows what they're going to do at that point.
Right. And is Michael Saylor a single point of failure right now? Like what would happen to the price of Bitcoin if something, God forbid, happened to him?
Yeah, like hit by a bus kind of situation.
Right.
Yeah.
We gotta put him with that dude who wants to live forever, and they can just like go, be in a bubble and drink whatever enzymes and so forth.
Yeah, Brian Johnson. We've talked about him not the first time that we have talked about him on the show, which is funny.
I'm curious to see how AIs are going to want to obtain Bitcoin and use Bitcoin, because I think that's eventually going to be something, and they can perform way more processes and tasks than us as individuals. And, I think they're probably, of course, going to want SBTC too.
Rena, you were going to mention something.
No, not on AI, because I am the least educated person to talk about AI whatsoever. But I was just going to say, from like your sailor, what happens if he gets hit by a bus? Like, on the same notion, if Saylor ever has to like bow to pressure from his board and pay dividends, do you know how much of a massive price fall it will be for Bitcoin? Because he will have to sell Bitcoin to pay dividends for all his shareholders, because Strategy's software business does not break even. Like, it does not make enough money to even consider it. So like, I actually worried about, we literally have left the faith of our industry in almost a singular dude.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to switch gears. Jack already mentioned GameStop. We're definitely going to get to that. That's definitely the biggest story of the week, I think, but wanted to shout out a couple of other companies, public company news, things that we heard this week. Energy company Cooler, KULR, acquired some more Bitcoin this week, 56.3 Bitcoin. They now hold 668, not quite, a little over 666. So maybe they acquired a little bit more just to, not have that omen behind them. But also saw news that eToro is going to be filing an IPO. So we'll have another crypto company potentially going public in the very near future. So that's big news. But let's get into the GameStop stuff. So at the beginning of this week, they announced that their board had unanimously approved an update to its investment policy to add Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. It was a very, very short press release that they shared, just like a couple sentences, basically just saying that. Looking into it, they currently hold about $4.75 billion in cash. So, a lot of people were thinking at the time that they announced this, like maybe they'll take some of that cash, invest it in Bitcoin as an inflation hedge. But no, they're going to be doing what looks like just something out of the strategy playbook, which is they announced a $1.3 billion convertible senior note offering, which is something that we've seen, strategy do. And they explicitly state in that offering that it's a quote, it says GameStop expects to use the net proceeds from the offering for general corporate purposes, including the acquisition of Bitcoin in a manner consistent with GameStop's investment policy. And at today's prices, if they were to take, well, actually, maybe not today because Bitcoin went down a little bit, but maybe at yesterday's prices, if they took that $1.3 billion and bought Bitcoin with it, that would put them at number 4 among other public companies behind Strategy, Marathon, and Riot, and right above Tesla, who holds about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. So they would be number 4 in the running with everybody else. So pretty huge news. GameStop, obviously, we had a lot of, not we, but GameStop themselves had a lot of, movement. The meme stock era, right, was like around GameStop a few years ago with their stock going crazy. So they're just getting into this Bitcoin mix. And I guess the news, I don't know if the news like tanked GameStop's price, but we've certainly seen their stock price go down since they announced this, which is interesting.
It's because of the tariffs, the import tariffs that tanked GameStop's stock.
Yeah.
And actually, it's ironically one of the worst quarters of the Dow has performed, like 700-point loss since 2023. It's actually like pretty terrible. Whereas like you could have like crypto or at least Bitcoin ripping, but everything else is melting.
Yeah, definitely, we've talked about it on the show a lot, over the past several weeks, is like there's so much bullish news specifically in the crypto space that's just being completely overshadowed by all the stuff that's happening in macro that is just tanking the price of everything and taking crypto down with it. So that definitely makes sense. But yeah, big news, from GameStop, $1.3 billion worth of Bitcoin potentially in the near future.
Yeah. So I think I sent it to you guys, but they released like a little press release about it, and their whole release was 24 words, and everyone's reading into that, being like, Bitcoin speaks for itself, a 24-word seed phrase. But yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, they just like came up to the mic and they were just like, Bitcoin, and then they just walked away, and that was all that they needed to do, and the market went crazy.
Yeah, it speaks to some underlying dynamic that I fully haven't figured out yet, but even now in the U.S., you have different states adopting Bitcoin and making it to where we can buy Bitcoin with our, excess cash, what have you. What does that ultimately look like, even in this country? What does it, how does that affect, the different population densities, just for the ones who buy and the ones who don't buy? I mean, it's wild that we're having this conversation right now. 3 years ago, could you imagine having this conversation right now? And that's really the cool thing. Like, it's all of this is relatively uncharted. It's hard to project, even if you spend a lot of time thinking about it, and it's hard to know what the outcomes are going to be. But that's exciting. More than anything else, especially when you accept the fact that you have much less control over your life than we tend to like to think that we do anyway. But then, we can just kind of step back and be like, this is crazy. This is absolutely uncharted territory, and it's exciting. I'm very anxious to see what the next decade's going to look like, because states, businesses, giant personalities, countries, like everyone's orange pilled, and it's only spreading.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised that, one, we haven't seen that many public companies get involved with Bitcoin yet, but two, that they're doing this sort of MicroStrategy playbook and not just being really simple about just allocating like 1% or 2% or just something very conservative. When these public companies are getting involved in these Bitcoin strategies, they're going all in, right? And they're making it like their entire brand almost, and they're using it as like a huge marketing, moment for them when they announce these, flashy Bitcoin purchases. And I'm surprised that we're not just seeing it as like, this is just like a standard thing. Like, yeah, we're diversifying we're trying to, protect against inflation. We're not doing anything crazy. I'm surprised that we're not seeing just more of that. And instead we're seeing these $1.3 billion potential purchases of Bitcoin.
As someone who's experienced FOMO personally, this might just be what FOMO looks like when you're a giant corporation.
That is true. Yeah, all these companies are trying to, just be that number one spot, right? Or maybe number two behind MicroStrategy strategy.
By the way, I think X might be rugging right now. I'm not getting anything loading on my phone, so maybe that's why only us 6 people retweeted it. So we'll see. I was trying to find...
We have had a few more. We have had a few more people retweet it. Maybe it's working for me, but we'll give people some more time. Maybe it'll hopefully come back and we'll pick a winner or winners shortly.
There we go. Well, I just wanted to shout out, I know obviously like most of the talking points are on the institutional side because that's like what's newsworthy. But I was reminded of when we had Troy Cross on the show, he was talking about what his work is with the Bitcoin Policy Institute and the research paper that he released about who owns Bitcoin. Because I think that's something that we really need to be cognizant of. It's super fun to talk about like, oh my God, this company is buying more Bitcoin. But Rena, to your point about the deep value of retail buying it, I think it's worth giving some attention to articles like that research, so that we can know and even in some way do our part of distribution and helping more retail onboard to Bitcoin.
I mean, I think we all have to do our portion to get retail onboarded to Bitcoin. Obviously, most of us in this call are biased to do it through the lens of Leather because we fundamentally believe that we're the best Bitcoin wallet out there. I think it's even just like going to like underserved markets. So like, I'm Indian, everyone knows that pretty clear. And India is one of the largest singular holders of Bitcoin in numbers of wallet addresses. That is the world's largest population as well. It's no secret about that. But you have to kind of bring it down to every level to get there kind of on that same page. Now, I don't know how many people caught the news earlier this week about China's re-Bitcoin ban. That's going on. So you're about to cut out the second world's largest population from being discouraged to hold Bitcoin or own Bitcoin or even interact with the Bitcoin blockchain. And it's like, my big thing is that if we actually want to see the world embrace and adopt Bitcoin, you have to do it on global policy scale. And so you can't just do it by isolated countries like the MiCA rules of EU or American rules here or kind of whatsoever kind of all across the board. I would rather see better policy or kind of initiatives taken out from the World Bank and the UN and those type of economic forums that actually impact global economies at scale. Like a G20 conference should feature Bitcoin, things like that. But we don't see that right now because everyone is still, at least in G20, fixated on the climate change aspect of Bitcoin and where it is not, in their eyes, serving the environment. I have my own viewpoints on that because most of Bitcoin mining is now run either clean energy or renewable energy or recycled waste energy. I think it's even going back to that level is actually pretty important. Some of the work that Mara and Exxon and other oil companies are doing is showing how important Bitcoin mining is to sustain the global energy markets are critical.
Do you have any thoughts on when you think we'll start seeing those conversations happen at the G20 level?
I think for like the World Bank has already made statements about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I know they are in the process of evaluating a digital dollar like asset. So the World Bank is already far above their time in terms of like blockchain adoption. I'm not sure about G20. I think it's a little bit odd that they haven't kind of made it there. I would hope in the next maybe 5 years we would see it kind of on the docket of topics, but it will likely come from a stablecoin perspective. Like you can't ignore that this was probably the largest week of stablecoins in like all of global markets. Not only did you have Fidelity issuing their stablecoin coming out this week, Trump and his family association also issuing a stablecoin. And so people understand that you need something that is not exposed to volatility to kind of dip your toe in the water. And this is kind of the lens to do it. Even Wyoming's state charter was doing the task force for the stablecoin as well this week. So I'm glad to see like these level of adoptions there, because still the entire global reserve currency is the US dollars. So bringing it digital, bringing it on chain is the right step. But now how do we go beyond of, do we want to just do the dollar or do we want to do a native crypto asset?
Yeah, and to your point about stables dipping your toes in the water, that's such a good point, because we're still not at that stage where we can abstract away the learning curve of crypto. I think we will get there, primarily through AI, but stablecoins are a great way to get people, used to using the tools like Leather to, what's a transaction, how's it work, what's an address, how's it work, etc. And yeah, the stablecoin part is, to me, it's been the most bullish thing so far, because again, like we've kind of segregated our thinking into the world of crypto and magical internet money and Bitcoin, and then the real world. And now that they're merging, what's that going to look like on the real world side when you have stablecoin issuers that are making essentially the bank money, right? Like this is the kind of banks are traditionally keeping yield, they're making service charges, they're making all these different things. So what does that look like for your everyday consumer? And again, what do stablecoins ultimately look like? I know in the legislation they're considering in the U.S., so they're starting to develop the verbiage around, you have to have bonds, this, that, and the other, and standard. And then, but right now here on Stacks, we have Hermetico that's a Bitcoin based stablecoin. And so what does that look like? What does the next iteration of stablecoins look like in general? What kind of financial products do they ultimately become? Again, it's going in so many different directions, and it's hard to track what anything's going to look like. But the stablecoin part in and of itself is just such an important piece of the puzzle. Ethereum's market cap, its TVL, is roughly half of its roughly stablecoin value. Like this is, and that's nothing compared to when you start talking about states and countries and the World Bank and Fidelity and all of these things making their own stables. Like it's crazy. Everything we know right now, and then if you throw AI in the mix of it too, you just really can't project what it's going to look like 6 months from now, much less a year from now. But it's all exciting.
Yeah, I'm not an expert by any means on stablecoins, but I was checking it out more this week with all of the buzz going around, and I think the ecosystems in which these stablecoins are developed is a huge part of it. Whether you're building on Ethereum or you're building on something like Stacks, that is a big factor, because, like you mentioned, Jack, AIs could play a big role in this as well. What are the other applications to which these types of stablecoins would transit? Yeah, it's typical technology. Innovation moves so quick, and what we're talking about today in 3-6 months could be so different. But a lot of to me, it's how are they building it? What are they building it on? What else is happening in that ecosystem are big things to keep in mind.
Yeah, when the big like startup buzzword is like disrupting, right? Like disrupting an industry or what have you. Yeah, stablecoins are going to disrupt a lot. You know, Bitcoin is already in the process of disrupting a lot. So it's, I don't know, it feels like we're in the early stages of something massive, and you just can't quite pin down what it's ultimately going to look like.
I want to draw some winners. Kate, how many do we have? 6 packs to give away? Is that right?
Yes, we have
Okay.
6.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to do this live. We're going to pick out some winners. Here we go. I put everybody's name in here that retweeted the space. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. Let's go. Let's see who our first winner is. Look at that. Jack. Congratulations.
Never win anything. That's awesome.
We're gonna give out some more. We're gonna give out 5 more. So stay tuned. Jack, we're gonna remove your name here. We're gonna keep going.
You should have done like a process of elimination. So if your name gets picked, you're out.
That's a good point.
Rick, I know Rick.
Yeah, Rick Cotter, congratulations. We'll DM you. Expect DMs from the Trust Machines handle on X in the very near future. We'll get your info to send these to you.
Just want to shout Rick out. Rick is a great photographer and supporter of all the artists in Ordinals and in Stacks NFTs.
Wonderful.
Really nice guy, too.
Thank you, Rick. Let's see. Who is next? Thug Life. Congratulations, Thug Life.
Thug's a good guy.
Everybody who retweeted this space is a good guy.
All
or girl.
winners.
All right, we got Chad STX on here. Congratulations, Chad STX.
2
Let's see, do I have
so far.
one more? I lost count. How many have I given out?
And you get a sweater, and you get a sweater, right?
I'm gonna do one more here. And Web3 Binta,
All right.
congratulations. Also very just always in the trenches in the community. Congratulations. Definitely see Web3 Binta's name around quite a bit. I think is that 6? I don't want to give out too many. Was anybody counting for me?
I feel like it might have been
No.
5.
Do one more.
Let's do one more. Let's do it. All right. CTRNA, congratulations. And for everybody that won, just stay tuned for a DM from the Trust Machines handle, and we will get you sorted. Thank you everybody for participating in that. That was fun. Well, that's all the news that we had to talk about. GameStop, certainly the biggest story of the week. I do want to give a few thank yous because this is our 1-year anniversary. So first, I want to give a thank you to Sean. Sean has been, I think, probably the longest running host that we've had on the show, co-host that we've had on this show. Always brings great questions, great insights. We love him on Leather Lounge as well. You might not see Sean on the show quite as often anymore because he's actually going to be dedicating some more time to leather, more specifically, putting a lot more energy into Leather Lounge and some more leather content. So we're not necessarily going to see him quite as often on the show anymore, but thank you, Sean. We love having you on here. And yeah, it's been so great co-hosting with you over the year that we've been doing the show. It's pretty amazing.
Truly. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. I have so many good memories of just jumping in, and a lot of this happened like when I was doing a lot of traveling. So there was some stretches where it was like 5 weeks in a row. It was like always in a different place. And I always have Good for Bitcoin associated with all these different places. Yep, I appreciate it. I'm definitely going to be jumping in whenever I can, though my family is going to be happy to get me back on Friday nights.
Yeah, Friday nights can be rough. You've certainly dedicated a lot of Friday nights to Good for Bitcoin. We definitely appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to Shaylee as well. She's not in our panel right now, but she has joined the show many times. And when we first started Good for Bitcoin, she was my co-host for several weeks. I think it was just the two of us that were trying to host the show together and trying to get this show started before Sean eventually joined in as well. So shout out to Shaylee. She'll be on the show again in the near future. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to Kate. Kate has been instrumental in pushing us into video. The reason that you're seeing all of our faces right now is pretty much because of Kate. So, we really evolved the show a lot. When did we switch to video? That was maybe December?
I think it was in the new year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, new year, but either way, I think we've the show has been elevated so much by us being on video, getting to see each other's faces, getting to then have really cool content to then post on our socials after the show. So Kate's just been really awesome in really just elevating this show. So thanks, Kate.
Oh, I love it. There's some good faces on here, and it just, yeah, brings like a human element to all of the fun things that we're talking about. So I think it was definitely a good move, and I've loved being on the show. I've learned honestly a lot.
Yeah, it's really nice to have this show weekly. It forces me to keep up to date on all the news that's happening so we can then talk about it. And I really just love what this show has turned into. Being able to recap the news, to not do it in a clickbaity way, and to just be honest and realistic about the news that's happening in the world that involves Bitcoin. It's also just crazy to look back and see how much progress that Bitcoin has made in the past year. Just speculating on whether we would be getting a Bitcoin president in the US, and just all the developments that have happened with regulatory clarity and just everything that has happened in this past year on Bitcoin. Obviously, all the stuff that's happened with stacks. We finally have like a Bitcoin L2 that you can do amazing things on. All the products that we've launched in the past year on the Trust Machine side, between Granite and .locker, and hopefully I'm not forgetting any. We're very busy. But yeah, it's been a really great year. We're not ending the show, of course. We're going to continue. We'll see you everybody next week. Mr. Wagme, Jack, thank you guys, both of you, for joining us today. Really nice to have some more faces on the show. And we'll have to do it again sometime soon. Not in a year from now. We'll do it sooner than that, hopefully.
Thank you all at Trust Machines for working so hard for the community. Everything that you guys have been doing is just absolutely, we know you're working hard, and it's game-changing stuff, and so really just thank you. Could not be happier to be in the Stacks ecosystem and see how all of this is playing out. It's exciting, and everyone else is talking about BTC-Fi, and you guys have created it. So thank you. This is excellent.
I echo.
I'm just going to throw it right back on the community side, right? It is like we do some work, but like it is the community in this ecosystem is incredible. And, we wouldn't be able to be successful with the things that we're doing without the community support. So definitely just want to mention that. But Mr. Wagme, go ahead.
I was just going to echo what Jack was saying. You all do so much for the community, and we see you out there on socials. We see you, your boots on the ground, making things happen. And not only that, but, connecting digitally with everyone and doing it across several different applications. I see it streaming on other platforms too. I think that goes a long way. And, for people that enter the space, they need those types of modalities to connect on, and people that can, talk at different levels of the technical discussion too. So thank you. I appreciate it.
That's a good point. And we actually don't talk about it too much, just in terms of we stream on X. We're also streaming this show on our LinkedIn and on YouTube. And then we package this show up and post it to Spotify, and it's a podcast as well. So we're like trying to get this out to as many people as we can. I don't think we've ever mentioned on the show that we actually are streaming to like LinkedIn, because I think a majority of the people that are listening from Twitter or from X. But yeah, we are trying to get our name out there as much as we can and capture different audiences as well, right? Certainly a different audience on LinkedIn compared to the degens on Twitter.
Yeah. And congrats to you, Brandon. I mean, like, this show is your brainchild. This is you every week. You're sourcing all of the stories and things that we're talking about. And I know you've talked about before that you feel you found your voice. Well, I think that is so true. And like, you've become such an amazing voice in Stacks, but Bitcoin. And yeah, it's a pleasure to get to do the show with you.
So nice. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we, I wanted to do this type of show for a long time. And I think I waited like a year before like finally starting to do it. Just because I was like, I don't know why. I guess we waited too long, but I'm glad that we're now 1 year into it, and the show is just getting better and better. And yeah, just really excited for the future of this show and the future of Bitcoin. That's probably a good place to end it.
Congrats, Brandon. Been a great year.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for listening. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.